I just said, no, I'm not related to them by blood because I just couldn't be.
Wow. My middle name is Katz, Katz, and I was named after my mother's grandfather, who was from the old country somewhere, whose last name was Katzenellenbogen.
Well, that's a common, I've heard that name. That's
Have
a
you? Well,
Katzenellenbogen.
I'm just glad they shortened it and
I
didn't give
think
me the whole thing.
I've heard that name. I'm not sure. I don't know if I maybe on my mother's side there were Katzenellenbogens. We may be related
Well,
then.
we're all related,
Well,
aren't
true.
we?
We did the 23andMe, my
Yeah.
wife and I, and it turns out we're, 23rd cousins or something like
Oh,
that. So
I think all Ashkenazi Jews are related, like by no more than 6 degrees of separation.
yeah.
So,
Anyway, welcome back. We want to,
yeah,
I don't know if we get a trip report.
yeah, I'm sorry I missed while I was in London. I had fully planned to do the call, but my wife had made dinner plans with the couple we were staying with, and there was a conflict in time. So I told Susan Nanis that it's going to be really tough for me, and she said, "Oh, don't worry about it." I will tell you, we have a really small group today, and if you want to butt out or whatever, please feel free. Um, but there's some discussion about whether we should, and this won't will not be my decision, about whether we should change the time of this call to maybe early evening on a weeknight, just as an effort to get more people
Mhm.
involved and get more people to join the talk. It would be something like maybe 6:30 or 7 o'clock on a weekday night. And I don't know how you all feel about it, but if you have any strong feelings one way or another, I would hate to lose anybody because we did that. But it no matter what we do, I've talked to them so many times about trying to promote this a little more aggressively to get some more people involved, but it seems like uh, a failed effort. So, at any rate, we don't even have Steve on here today. I don't know where he is. Um,
I,
anyway,
I I'll just say that that would be okay with me. I do Zooms every other first and third Tuesdays of the month, and
uh-huh.
every 3 weeks or so on some night we don't, that's not set for sure.
Yeah.
But generally that would be fine.
Well, I think what we're going to do going forward is this is going to be the last Zoom for the year, and then we'll reconvene in early January, and I will be in conversation with Susan Nanis and whomever else she thinks appropriate to talk
So,
about whether we want to or they want to move it to a different time. I've been a big proponent of doing something to make this more well known within the congregation, because every time, like we went to services, Shabbat services last Friday night at downtown in Koreatown. And a number of people say, "Oh, you're the one who does that. I should join." So they don't even know about it, which leads me to believe that people don't really read the daily emails that they sent out. But so we're
do
going to
you
work
know
on. Go
do
ahead.
you know Susan alternates with you a Torah study at the same time on
Yeah,
Wednesdays? Do
for
you know
women,
if people go to that?
I
Or is
guess.
it just that
But there's not everybody is a news junkie, and you really have to be interested to kick around these ideas. Funny enough, we have my brother-in-law and his wife are staying with us this week. They're from New York. And I got into a long and almost heated discussion with her this morning about media coverage of the Israel and Gaza war. And she'd be great to be on this. Well, she kind of wouldn't stop talking, but it's that rare person who really dives into stuff, on a daily basis and thinks about it. And anyway, here's how I wanted to start. I wrote down a whole.
Excuse me, can I just say that
Oh, sure.
if you're switching it to like late afternoon or evening, we're not going to find that the slightest bit convenient. And the
I'm sorry.
chances,
Say that again, Sylvia. You're not what?
if you're going to switch this to like late afternoon or early evening or stuff, we're very hopelessly old-fashioned. We turn off the computer late afternoon and do not use it. We don't do screen time after dinner
Oh
ever.
boy, you are disciplined. Okay.
No, no, it's a question of peace of mind, if you will. And since this group tends to make me, I don't know, hostile, angry, whatever, we spend a lot of time debating, and I don't want to be doing that late at night.
Okay, fair enough. I'll make sure they know that. And look, I don't know if they'll change it or not, and we'll see. So no worries at this point. Um, I was going to start off by asking kind of a general question based on, I wrote down about 10 or 12 line item things that I'm just going to read to you and then ask you a question. So I want you to just stick these things in the back of your head. Congress, the Republicans in Congress are largely Trump sycophants. There are cracks with NATO, including the pronouncement in the new national security document from the US that Europe faces erasure because of their immigration policies. Public opinion is unhappy with the economy, yet Trump was on TV or in an interview recently when he was asked what he makes of the economy. He said, I would give it an A, and then he said the word plus 5 times. So there's sort of a disconnect there. There are recent stories about Hamas rearming and taking firm control of their piece of Gaza right now. The U.S. proposed deal for peace in Ukraine is complete. I think it's almost dead because Zelensky said yesterday, under no circumstances would Ukraine cede any land. The tariffs are hurting the American economy to the degree that Costco, for one, is suing the administration based on the fact that they have to pass off the added cost to customers, which they don't want to do. There is open disdain for Black Americans in that the administration decided that the national parks would no longer offer free entry on Martin Luther King Day and Juneteenth, while it would eliminate the entry fee on Trump's birthday. And okay, the next item, after Republicans made great inroads with the Latino population, the ICE raids are destroying that. The proposals, I don't know if you've been watching the whole issue with the Kennedy Center, probably soon to be named the Trump Kennedy Center, with all that gold stuff all over the place. There's that. Seems to be a disconnect between the bombing of these drug carrying boats in the Caribbean,
So cold.
with the pardon for the ex-president of Honduras, who was convicted and sentenced to 45 years in jail for drug running or being affiliated with a drug dealer. And then the last thing I have on my list is, and I thought this is really interesting. Both parties now are talking about in their upcoming campaigns for next year, the issue of affordability, which not only does Trump call it, not only refers to it, but calls it a Democratic hoax. And the irony to me is nobody talked about this issue using the word affordability until Mamdani did it in running for mayor of New York. And no matter how you feel about Mamdani, it's a good issue for New York and maybe a good issue for the rest of the country. Anyway, so here's my question. When you think about all these things, how and why do 70 million people in this country still support this administration? I do not get it.
Me either.
I don't get it either.
Yeah.
I get it.
Go ahead, explain it to me.
I attribute it to the continuation, and I've talked about this before, of the dumbing of America. And as Trump can simplify these complex issues, and I think they are complex, to It's because there are, and excuse my language, I'm paraphrasing Trump, rapists and child molesters coming across the border. And because, Biden has senility or what have you, as he creates these simple answers to complex issues, people who don't want to think much, they'll gravitate towards that. I know that isn't the answer, but that's a answer to your
I think
question.
that's part of it. I actually agree with you, and I've talked a lot to friends about that, about how, and I've talked about it to friends in the context of Israel and how people conflate anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism. And most people don't make a distinction there. And maybe in some ways, there's no distinction there to be made. But in large measure, you can love Israel and challenge the Israeli government. And in neither case should they be transferable to anti-Semitism. But I don't think people think that way. I don't think people know the nuances of differences. Actually, this is something I was going to bring up. Um, I joined some months ago. The temple put out a solicitation for men to join a group, a men's group that would meet periodically. Did you join, Ben?
I'm an old-time member. We've been meeting as a smaller group for a number of years, and
No
this was
kidding.
our last year. We've tried to grow it out a little bit. This year we did it more. So I held my first local group. I live near K-Town. I live near the synagogue, and I had my first group here last week. 13 men showed up.
No
I'm just so
kidding.
excited about what it can be. I apologize for hogging the conversation,
No,
but
no, no, that's fine. That's fine.
men don't have places to meet like they may have once have. I mean, in my generation, I don't know, maybe in high school, the locker room or something. But now this gives us a place. I don't know if all 13 will come back, but I hopefully many of them will. And I just think it's a great opportunity. We had an amazing discussion, and I think it's great.
Well, I don't want to bore Joanne and Sylvia on this, but I'm curious. I'm curious to know, and if you guys don't want to hear any of this, just let me know, and we'll go on to something else. But I joined, and we had our first meeting last week, and I'm not a joiner. I've never joined anything. I guess from my career, I've always worked by myself, maybe with a photographer, but I'm not a team guy. But I wanted to see what this was about and what the conversation was going to be about. And I was hoping it would not devolve into like a therapy session. I didn't want any of that. But it turned into almost the whole 2 hours we were there. We talked about Israel and anti-Semitism, which kind of surprised me that that's the direction we went. And it was a free for all. I mean, you could talk about anything. I'm curious to know what your group talked about, and I don't know. It was interest. It was interesting. I don't know that I loved it, but it was interesting. And I'll
Would
go
you go
back.
back,
I'll
Michael,
go
to the,
back.
and I
I'll
think we're going to
try.
meet again 4 times a year, maybe in February or so.
Oh, our intention is to be once a month somewhere.
Oh,
So
okay.
I guess this is
Maybe
part
I'm
of the
falling
plan.
out. I'm a leader. Maybe I've
Yeah,
missed that
you
memo.
are.
Uh,
You're like the prime minister of all this.
a hard discussion, and we kept it pretty loose. We kind of had drinks and we had dinner, and people were just sort of chit-chatting around the table. Was no direction, individual conversations. Then we formed into a group to have a more serious discussion, and I let off talking a little bit about Hanukkah and
Mhm.
what Hanukkah means, sort of my experience of Hanukkah, and talked about the masculinity of these Maccabees fighting and a
Oh, that's
bigger army and defeating the Romans, I guess. And how does that relate today? And then I talked about sort of the intellectual side of the Jewish experience and how does that fit in? And then one of the men talked about how his kid goes to day school at uh, at the synagogue,
at
and they
Brown
had
here.
received a note at K Town about a presentation this week, that week, and there could be some unrest, so just kind of giving them a heads up.
Oh,
And
yeah.
we talked about that, and then the next day that happened. So it
Yeah.
was really kind of
Wow.
apropos that we talked about it. But as we talked about anti-Semitism, but we can talk about any, we'll talk about anything. There's no,
Yeah, that was our case. In fact, for some reason I didn't see this or I missed it on an email, but there was a directive to, as a kickoff subject, was to talk about Hanukkah and what that meant to you and what the meaning is. For me, when I was a kid, Hanukkah only meant getting presents 8 straight days. I didn't know anything about Maccabeans or anything or lights that didn't go out or I probably learned that in Hebrew school. But it was interesting how some people, even though it's not regarded as a major Jewish holiday, it meant a lot to some of these guys around the table. Whereas to me, it was just okay. It was, the equivalent of Christmas, right? So they have Christmas and we have Hanukkah. Um, did you all was Hanukkah a big deal in your house growing up? Joanne, was that a big deal to you?
Well, I don't know if you call it a big deal, but we definitely lit candles every night,
Yep.
and we had the food, potato pancakes. That's what I remember. I also remember almost setting fire to the house
Oh, well, there's that.
in the kitchen, actually.
Yeah. Sylvia,
But yeah, so
was
we definitely observed. And
yeah. Sylvia, was it a big deal to you and your family?
Not a big deal. I mean, we lit the Hanukkah every night. We got one present,
One for the 8 days.
right? But then we got Hanukkah every night.
And you got what? Hanukkah gift.
Hanukkah every
Yeah.
night. My father dispensed when we were little. We were getting dimes, which shows you how long ago it was.
Dime.
But by the time I was out of the house or close to it, we were getting like $1.
Oh boy.
But I grew up in a very Jewish neighborhood, and Christmas was across the street. It had nothing to do with us.
Yeah.
Our holiday was Hanukkah. We lit the candles, and that was it. I didn't realize really till I was out there in the world that Christmas was that big of a deal. Even though I was in New York and they decorated the stores in Manhattan and all that, that was out there someplace. That had nothing to do with me.
Yeah. Herb, what was your experience?
I didn't have any experience in that because I was growing up with a single mother, and she was not Jewish.
Oh, interesting.
And but for some reason or other, my father, of course, was a Jew, and I saw him as frequently as they let me because I was crazy about him. And he and my grandmother on my Jewish side, but I didn't do much of that.
Did you light the candles?
No,
No, interesting.
my mother was not Jewish, so she didn't do it. And she was
Okay.
mad at she had mad at my father and divorced him in a tough, a fight.
Huh. Did you have a Christmas tree?
Um, sometimes at that.
I don't know. I didn't know you did.
I think we had occasionally.
Yeah, interesting. There was a member of my men's group. When we first gathered and we were going around to sort of introduce ourselves. One guy said he was born Catholic and was Catholic through most of his adult life, and then went through the conversion program under Bo Shapiro when he was still at the temple. And he's you talk to him now, you would never know he was never not Jewish.
Okay.
And I thought he was really interesting. I actually wanted to talk to him a little bit more about that because to go from Catholic to Jewish, I think is a lot easier than going from Jewish to Catholic because I think those two religions are so antithetical to each other. But I thought he was a really interesting guy. I really got a kick out of him. But our discussion of Hanukkah kind of morphed into this discussion about anti-Semitism, and the questions that we were talking about would not surprise you at all. They're the questions we all kind of live with, and it all kind of boiled down to why is there always anti-Semitism? I mean, why? What is it about Jews that make us so easy to hate? And it was interesting. Different people had different ideas. One of which was, and maybe you all have some. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. The fact that there's this perception that Jews are powerful and rich, and that we run everything, which is totally ridiculous considering what's the population of Jews in the world? 1% maybe? Not much more, I don't think. And I thought that was interesting. I'd never really heard that. And of course, my
Seriously? You never heard that before?
what
The Jews are powerful and run
well,
everything?
yeah, but I guess as a Jew, I kind of laugh at that because I know that's so not true. But I guess the perception is Jews run Hollywood, Jews run Wall Street, Jews run the media. And I know there are a lot of Jews in all those areas, but gosh, there's a lot of non-Jews in there too, I think. Um, but I thought that was really fascinating. My view, of course, was Jews have been every people have been hating Jews for thousands of years. So this is just the latest iteration, whether it's getting worse or better or cyclical or what. Um, but
But historically, it's because the Jews resisted Christianity
yeah,
and became the enemy. And
the other.
Jew hatred became one of the tenets of early Christianity. And so while it may go under the surface occasionally, it always comes back up because that's the way Catholicism, especially, has been taught. If you remember when the encyclical came out and Pope said the Jews didn't kill Christ,
Yeah.
okay, I was taking a class in ancient Roman history at the time, and my teacher walked into the class and said, "Hey guys, we didn't do it." And you knew the one non-Jew in the class who said, "Huh? What are you talking about?" Okay, all the rest of us got it.
Really? Yeah.
Because we
Did
all
you
know, I went
did
to
you guys see
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
no, did you guys see Rabbi Nickerson on CNN after the incident at the temple last week?
No,
I did not. I heard he was not happy.
He about the incident. But what he said exactly what you said. People have been hating Jews forever
Yeah.
since the beginning of time. That's exactly what he said.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really something. It's quite a phenomenon.
no. Hating Jews is a way of bringing the haters together.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's a unifying force.
That's right.
And they have something to live for, so to speak. So they are, we out there, we gotta keep it, because we gotta protect ourselves from those bad Jews.
Yeah, it's so normalized. I did a story one time. I don't know, maybe I said this in one of a previous Zoom call, but I did a story one time in a suburb of Pittsburgh where I was interviewing a guy who bought jet airplanes from former communist countries that were within the Soviet sphere. So he would fly these planes to some place outside of Pittsburgh and he would rehabilitate them. And I don't know, maybe sell them on a side market or give people rides. Or I don't know, what do you do with them? Or maybe I did know and I forgot. But I said to him at one point, so if you don't mind me asking, what do you pay for these jets? He said, well, you know how it is. They'll quote me a price and I Jew them down. And I'm thinking, I had never really heard that. Well, I guess maybe I had heard that, but as an example of how normalized it is to disparage Jews, that, we are the other, we are different. And it's always punching down from a non-Jewish perspective. And like I let it go. I didn't say anything. I didn't say, hey, I'm Jewish and that's offensive to me. Because I was there to do a story, not to get into an argument with this guy. But it was just another reminder of how the world works.
Yeah, Michael,
Yeah, go ahead.
a man said that one of my coworkers, who happened to be a black man, said that to me. We were talking about selling my car, and he said something about Jewing them down. And I said, did you hear what you said? And he said, yeah. And he repeated it. I said, no, did you really hear what you said? And he stopped and he said, I did not. He said, that never occurred to me. It was part of my my language, and I never thought about anything about what it meant.
Yeah.
And he probably never said it again after that. But yeah, he had no idea that that was offensive.
Yeah, I think that kind of falls under the umbrella that Ben, you were talking about earlier, that people just don't think. I mean,
Mhm.
they're just we've lost so much critical thinking in the country, and common sense, and it's so disturbing. Something.
Well,
Go ahead.
I mean, I agree, but I also disagree because that happened to me as well. I was working for a very big company, and some colleague said that to me during an interview.
Said
It was
what
Mike,
exactly?
the example, Jew them down, or you're
Yeah,
a Jew, you're going to try to Jew me down, something
yeah.
like that. And big company, and I regret to this day, and I'm really not picking on you, Mike, but I regret to this
Not
day
saying
that I
something.
did not report that to
Yeah,
HR. And then
yeah.
this was probably 15 years ago. Maybe it would have been handled differently. Like, Ben, get over it. But to me, it's and there are other terms like using the N word,
Right.
which is, that's the third rail. If you say that in a business meeting,
Yeah,
you're
you're
going to be
gone.
fired just about.
Yeah.
Um, to me, it's on the same level. So I think we do have to stand up and not allow that. Again, I'm guilty of letting it go and, I don't want to make waves and what have you. But at this point in my life, maybe because I'm older and
Yeah, now
I
you
don't
have to
need I
step
don't
up.
need that job anymore. I'm
Yeah.
retired, but um, I would not let it go. I mean, I wouldn't, punch somebody about it, but I would, I think Joanne, the way you handled it was one way. Um,
No,
but
you're right. I receded. Because
well, so did I.
I wasn't there as a Jew. I was there as a reporter trying to do a story, and
I hear you, Michael.
maybe I should have written that in the story. He Jewed him down. That would have got
Well,
him.
quote him, yeah, let him own that.
Yeah, that would
I
have
mean, I'm
been
not a
ugly.
journalist. I don't know how you do your job, but
Well, I don't know if that would have won editorial.
and I think we were saying this earlier. Jew hate has been a piece of Christianity for since the
Forever.
beginning. Yeah, forever. And it was, how did we get the Holocaust? Well, as we look back and try to dissect how did we get there, certainly that's part of it. The Jew hate, and I think you made another good point, Michael. It's easy, and I talked about it earlier, when you have your hate at one group, the Jews, the blacks, the Mexicans, whatever, it becomes a rally cry.
Yeah, that's
And the Jews didn't have that, didn't have an army, didn't have a state, so they were easy targets.
yeah. It's funny that that conversation that we had last week morphed into this notion of, oh, apropos of what you're talking about, Ben, is what do you do? How do you can't, it's almost impossible to change minds anymore. I think people are so firmly entrenched in their silos and their beliefs. So, given that, what do you do? And so at the Friday night service, they had a guest speaker, Rabbi, what's her name? Beckdahl from Central Synagogue in New York.
Mhm.
Angela Buckdell.
Yeah, she was fabulous.
Good.
Her singing was beautiful.
Oh, were you there?
I was live streaming it.
Oh, okay, fair enough. She was, yeah, I wish she was in our temple. Her singing was great, but the crosstalk with Rabbi Nickerson and one of them, I forget, I think it was Nickerson actually, who said the best way to combat anti-Semitism, in as much as you don't want to, it's tough enough to have a verbal altercation, but you certainly don't want it to morph into physical violation. Oh, Steve's here. Hang on, let me let him in. The best way to fight anti-Semitism is to be the best, live by the best Jewish characteristics as you can, to be moral, to be fair, to be generous, to be empathetic. That's the best way to fight anti-Semitism. Steve, welcome.
Thank you. Sorry I'm late.
Well, that's all right. We're just talking about anti-Semitism and that.
Every once in a while, life gets in the way.
Yeah. Anybody, I mean, do you have any other thoughts about what do you do when I know you can't confront it face to face, one on one, but any other thoughts about how to deal with anti-Semitism? Any suggestions?
The thing is that even if you could convince one or two people that you, as a Jew, are not, wearing horns and that kind of stuff, they will say, well, you're different. You're not like them. Because it's really much more comfortable to know that them or they are terrible, awful, dreadful, whatever it is that they ascribe to you. The problem with being Jewish is that it is identifiable. If you are Jewish, you are Jewish. And people who don't like Jews for whatever reason are going to say, well, of course, you're Jewish. That's how Jews are. You personally may be a little different, but not really. Deep down inside, you're just as bad as all the rest of them.
Yeah.
Or there's the key tip-off. Some of my best friends are Jewish.
Yeah.
And there would be no need to say that.
Right.
It
I mean,
reminds-
I encountered people when I was a Denver bureau chief for 4 years, and I covered all the interior West states, the big red states. And a lot of people I would meet and talk to and interview, they didn't know any Jews.
Mhm.
So I was like, the person that Sylvia just described. I had to hide my horns, and God forbid you should wear a kippah out in public, or it's there are those people among us who were just like strange.
Well, I had a roommate in graduate school who would sit there, and we shared a one-bedroom apartment, and she would sit there in the living room and stare at me. And
Stare at you?
at me. And finally I said, what? And she said, I don't see the horns.
She wasn't serious.
Yeah, she was. And I said, what are you talking about? And she said, well, she was Lutheran from northern Minnesota, if you can believe, 200 miles north of Duluth. There's something up there. And she had been taught that Jews had horns.
Wow.
I've met others who've been asked that question.
Well, if you look at the Michelangelo Moses, he's got horns.
Oh, is that right? I didn't know that.
Okay,
Yeah, that's part of where it comes from.
Okay, it's a mistranslation of a word, but that's beside the point. And I just looked at her and I said, Jews do not have horns. And she said, yes, of course you do. And I said, I don't have horns, and nobody I know has horns, and I don't know where you got that from, but stop staring at me. So she stopped staring, but she watched. I lived with her for a year, and she never really believed that I don't have horns.
Wow. Karen, you have your hand up and you're muted. So
yes, thank you.
There you go.
So my son is he's in a teen Hebrew school in San Pedro, and apparently they're talking about anti-Semitism. And for a while he's been scared.
How old is he?
He's 14.
14.
He had his bar mitzvah last year. And he said that he refuses to go to temple anymore because of an attack, like the possibility of an attack. So in San Pedro, there's an armed guard usually, and the door is locked. And then I'm also a member of Highland Park, and there is a gate with a lock, and you either need a ring and they need to see your face, or the code. So and it's complicated, right? Because it's on the right and on the left. Like how anti-Semitism would spike after October 7th is still beyond me. Kind of like how people would vote for a rapist is beyond me. But it's complicated because it goes more to, the mistranslation and I'm looking for your horns, like that classic anti-Semitism, as opposed to like there is anti-Semitism on the right with Jewish space lasers, and on the left, like colonization, right? Like, so you'll talk, there's this woman, I forgot exactly what the podcast was about, but it was really interesting. And she was talking about Israel and like from a human rights perspective, and she seemed like to be very like unbiased, right? But when it came to borders, after I don't know what you would call like the period of European colonization in the Middle East and Africa, she only talked about Israel. And then like it slipped, right? Like this word, this anti-Israel word slipped. But nobody talks about India, nobody talks about Pakistan, nobody talks about all these African countries. It was all the same shit. Nobody talks about it. But somehow it's always Israel, right? Like the atrocities that the Russians are committing in Ukraine and the Iranian government against its own people, it goes on and on. Nobody talks about that. Like there's another civil war in Sudan, right? Nobody talks about it.
Yeah,
But all of a sudden it's like Israel's like the biggest evil. And then like how do you combat it? You know, like how do you I know that there are organizations and ways and things, but it's just like from just like an individual layperson, how do you combat it? Because you get it from all sides.
that's
You know,
true.
it's not like just one group, you get it from all sides. And then I converted, and there's also like bias against converts among Jews, you know? So like you just get it from all sides.
Wait a minute. There's bias against someone who's converted. Is the bias from
Yeah.
the non-Jews or the Jews?
Definitely from the non-Jews. I hear it at work, oh, you're not Jewish, because I've been told that you cannot convert. And then like from Jews. Yeah, I mean like, okay, so it just makes no sense. So Abraham was no one, Ruth was no one, Samuel Davis Jr. was no one. Like it just doesn't make any sense. But yeah, you just get it from all sides, and that's like the frustrating part. I feel is that you can't just say, okay, this group is the problem. Like let's address
Yeah.
their issues. So you
Yeah.
just get it from all sides.
Yeah, that's kind of true. Ben, you had your hand up.
Well, thank you. And those were some great comments. And I would just say, one, the Torah teaches us to welcome converts even more so than, born Jewish, whatever. So I think it's Karen, she disappeared, but welcome as a fellow Jew. Second, about these borders and such, you've probably all seen that map where you look at the Arab countries or Muslim countries, and the Jews that were there,
Yeah.
even go back 50 or 100 years, and versus today, and they've all been pushed out,
Yeah.
and their community, their wealth has been taken, what have you, country after country. So why doesn't that ever come up? That the Jews have been expelled from
Yeah.
many countries. And then the third thing, and as a parent, of course, my daughter is 35, so not 14. But one of the things we talked about in our men's group is that, we have to be tough, like the Maccabees were tough. And, and I don't want to give parenting advice, but for example, if I had a son in school that was worried about his or his safety, I would say, well, you always go in a group of 2 or 3. So you're not going to be alone. You're going to be with other people. And I think when we're in groups, people are less likely to, pick a fight. So that might be a solution to that, a problem like that.
Yeah. I had a thought, it just flipped away. This happens when you get older. Anybody have that experience?
Yes.
Time.
What else do I have on my list? Oh, I know what I was going to say is I just read this, or I heard this the last couple of days. One of the reasons that they don't like Jews is, and I saw this written somewhere, that the Bible has 2 books, but Jews only read 1. And I thought, well, that's a pretty stupid reason to not like a Jew. And I know there's probably some historical and chronological reasons why we only read the first book and not the second. I guess the second book of the Bible was many years later. I'm not a Bible guy, so
You're not talking about what they call the New Testament?
Yeah, the New Testament. Yeah.
Well, along those lines, what's interesting is the Ugandan Jews, the missionaries sent them Bibles, which were Christian Bibles. They got through the Jewish Bible and wanted nothing to do with the New Testament and all became Jews. And that's a large community of Ugandan Jews now,
Oh,
based on these Bibles given to them by the missionaries.
oh, interesting. I didn't know that. You know, Karen raised a good point that I had actually never really thought of in this context, and that's about kind of having a colonial overseer. I mean, in the 50s and 60s, every Western European country was running some African country. I mean, the what was it? I mean, I know Italy had outposts, France did, Spain did,
Portugal.
um, and you know, it's a parallel, but that's never part of the conversation. It's only Israel as the boogeyman. Um, and I'm not saying that's entirely wrong. And we all know reasons why
Well,
Israel.
but I don't even see the analogy because the people in Africa weren't in Africa beforehand. The Jews were always there.
No, no,
Always.
I'm not talking. I'm not. Well, yeah, I'm just talking in the context of West Bank and Gaza till
They
2000.
were there too. I mean, actually, most of our historic sites are on the West Bank.
Okay, but Israel gets criticized now for being a colonizer or apartheid government, whereas all the Western European countries also were infiltrating African nations.
Right, but what I'm saying is Israel's not a colonizer at all in the sense that they are saying that because every place they claim the Jews are colonizing, Jews have been
Yeah,
for
okay.
almost 3 millennia.
Okay.
So
Well, in my
colonizers,
view, that doesn't stop the criticism.
but you can't colonize yourself.
Okay.
So what? It's not the same as saying. I mean, that to me is, whataboutism. You did it so we can do it, but it's not. That's not what this
No,
is.
I grant you it's not a perfect analogy, but um, I don't I and I don't know where that argument is going to end, whether Jews are entitled to the West Bank or not. Today's Israelis. Should they be there because of prior circumstances, or should they just leave the Palestinians alone?
Well, my view is they've entitled to all of it, but we waited 2,000 years to get what we have. There's no reason to fight over getting it now.
Right. Well,
We
yeah,
can have a two-state solution and deal with our mandate, another 1,000 years from now.
I think the other difference between the colonizing of Africa and whatever's happening in Israel has to do with the fact that the colonizers were Christian and they Christianized the natives. And so,
yeah, we're not proselytizing.
yeah, we have never, that's not something that Jews do.
Yeah, right.
Um,
That's true.
and so part of what they were doing was saving the natives from their, paganism or whatever it was. And
Yeah,
that made the colonizers noble and brave and courageous and
yeah.
good Christians.
Yeah, I really, just personally, I really struggle with the whole West Bank dilemma. I mean, whether it should be part of Israel or not, or whether we should, the settlement should be expanded and added to. Um, it's late in the game. Um, Everybody has to live somewhere. And if you're going to annex the West Bank, what do you do with all the non-Jews who live there? Do you move them into Gaza? Do you let them live there under Jewish rule? I don't know. I really struggle with what the best solution is, and how they're ever going to get to a two-state solution. I have no idea.
They're
But
not going to get to a two-state solution, and certainly in our lifetimes.
no,
But
I would agree with
what
that.
offends me more than anything else is what the settlers are doing to the
Yeah.
Palestinians.
Agree 100%.
They are destroying their homes. They are stealing their olive groves and their lemon groves. And the Israeli army is standing by and saying, it's okay, do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Some of them.
It's back to the idea that because they're Palestinians, in the eyes of too many settlers, they're not really human beings and
Yeah.
therefore don't deserve to be treated with dignity.
Well,
So
I do.
I don't know the answer. I just know that what they're doing is wrong.
Sylvia, you'll be shocked to know I agree with you, but
Oh my God, Steve, really?
I think unfortunately one of the problems is a lot of even very liberal Israelis after October 7th and what happened are far less tolerant, or I don't know what the right word is, but accommodating. They don't feel the same way about the Palestinians
Yeah.
and how they should be treated and what they should be given. And, you know, including, we had a babysitter who is way left of me, and she's an Israeli and lives in Israel. And, she hated it when her husband had to go off and defend settlers because she thought that was wrong. And even her tune has changed since October 7th.
Really? Yeah.
I mean, I don't think she wants to wipe them out or commit genocide, but far less of, we need a two-state solution. They're just people we can all get along. I don't think she thinks that anymore.
Yeah. Well,
And we're in constant contact with them.
what do you do with all these people? I mean, many of whom are just innocent people who just want to live their lives. I mean, what do you do?
Well, not as many as you would think. Unfortunately, if you really dig into it, there are far more Hamas sympathizers or whatever than they lead you to believe. But yes, there are some, and I don't know what you do. Hamas won't let them out. They want them there.
Yeah.
And they don't care about them. I mean, it's frightening that we care about them more than they care about them. They're just pawns, and if they're and all it does is give them, see, you killed more of our people, and they don't care. I think it's really unfortunate that Hamas leadership cares very little about their civilian population.
Yeah, I think that's one of the genesis of one of the issue is that the all the innocent Palestinians are just collateral damage for Hamas's aim.
And if they speak out, as you saw, what they do? They just lined up
kill 'em.
16 of them and shot them.
They execute them. Karen, you have your hand up?
Yes, thank you. Also, as to what you just said, and where are the college protests about that, right? When Hamas does things like that. But I've heard the two-state solution a couple of times, and I follow Texas Paul on YouTube, and he said something that I think makes more sense. He said we should stop calling it the two-state solution because we're going to need Israel's neighbors to be involved in the process because of the borders, So we're going to need the Egyptians, we're going to need the Jordanians, at some point Americans, and whoever else backs up. I guess it would be Qatar now. But it is going to be a multi-state solution to try to come up with a solution, but as many of Western countries that are recognizing the Palestinian state, I just don't see a willingness for peace. I mean, yes, they are dictators now, but they were voted in. Hamas was voted in originally around 2006. So what do you do with that, when their stated purpose is the destruction of Israel as a Jewish state and to take Jews out of there?
I wonder what were that election held after October 7th, what the result would be. Because I don't think the average Gaza resident bargained for what happened.
Assuming you could have a fair election.
Well, who knows if it was fair or not? I mean, we'll never know. I read this morning how there's growing protests about the Israeli government will not let Western reporters into Gaza to do just on the ground reporting as you would anywhere else. Like Vietnam, reporters could go almost anywhere, but they won't. Apart from, I think AP and Reuters, I don't think there are any real Western journalists on the ground in Gaza, unsupervised, to go just do the kind of reporting you want to do. I think that's more of a PR position than anything else. Meryl, welcome. We missed you. You're muted. Unmute yourself.
Didn't look well.
If I could do it, I would. No, you're still muted.
Why is it come so late?
There we go.
There you are.
I was watching mostly on Facebook. I didn't think I could get on regular.
Wait, we're on Facebook?
Well, I was on, yes, you are on
I
Facebook.
didn't even know that. How many followers
Yeah.
do I have?
I have no clue. I can't go back and forth on the ship here.
Yeah, I get that. I get that. Yeah, well, we've been talking mostly about Israel and anti-Semitism and why people hate Jews. Did you ever notice that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was struck by I listen I know I'm a glutton for punishment, but yesterday I turned on Fox News because I knew they would cover Trump's speech in Pennsylvania and nobody else would carry it. So I just wanted to listen to see what he was going to say. He was so bonkers. I mean, it was just insane. It was completely nuts. But one of the things struck me, and he said, and this kind of fuels this in some kind of left-handed way. He said when he came into office, everybody would say like "Happy Holidays." He said, now everybody is saying "Merry Christmas" again. Well, look at the other side of that. What is he saying there? And I've always contended that, I think he tolerates Jews. I'm not so sure he's a big fan of Jews.
He isn't.
He's an anti-Semite.
Well, I'm trying to be polite,
He's
Sylvia.
He's been an anti-Semite for as long as he's been alive.
Yeah.
Yep.
He inherited it from his father.
Yeah. Karen, go ahead.
I mean, there are so many things to say. Where to start, right? Like the money during one of the campaigns, right? Like the classic, like big nose money, right? Just because his daughter converted doesn't mean anything. He's such an anti-Semite. He had Nick Fuentes at the White House for dinner. He said there are good people on both sides.
Right.
He knows. He told the Proud Boys stand back and stand down or whatever, right?
Yep.
So come on, all that. I mean, yes, they're also racist. But I was listening to, I think, Benjamin Platt's being Jewish, and he had this woman on there. She's trying to combat anti-Semitism, and she said, if you look at all these extremist groups in the U.S., the thread that they all have in common is anti-Semitism. So all these groups, the Nick Fuenteses, the Proud Boys, the people in Charleston, they're all anti-Semites. And he's never said that it's wrong, right? Like a harsh, this is wrong, like a normal president.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, it just goes on and on.
Yeah, it never stops. I'll
No.
do that.
Anti-Semitism as a baseball bat against universities, because it's something he can grab onto, because the world in general and say, yeah, anti-Semitism is bad. So he can go after Harvard and Columbia and UCLA and all that sort of stuff. He doesn't give a flying whatever about Jews at all. And
I just think that's that's just a way of extorting the universities and trying to infiltrate their curricula with more conservative voices. Yeah, I don't buy any of that for reasons of fighting anti-Semitism. That's ridiculous, I think. We have a few minutes.
Trump's father built after World War II. He built apartment houses all over Brooklyn and Queens.
Yeah.
At first, he refused to rent to Jews and certainly not to blacks.
Right.
And then discovered that if he didn't rent to Jews, he couldn't rent his stupid apartments. Because they were the ones who had the money to pay for the apartments.
Right.
And so we actually, for I think 6 years, lived in a Fred Trump house.
Oh, you did? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. For my sins, we had been living in Bedford Stuyvesant. We had to get out, and so my parents rented an apartment in a community called Beach Haven, which is sort of adjacent to Coney Island. Those were Trump houses. And it was almost all Jewish because those were the people who could pay for rent.
And those people live there too.
Yeah, well, okay, but the thing is that the Trump organization, or whatever it was called in those days, was constantly being brought up by the city of New York on charges
Oh, yeah.
of anti-Semitism and anti-racism, and they never, ever rented to blacks. Sorry, that wasn't ever going to happen. And they didn't rent to Puerto Ricans, which was the other ethnic group that needed places to live.
Well, I know the government did like a sting where they sent they had a black family go in and say, "I'd like this one. How much is it?" Then they sent a white family in. How much is it? And the disparity was so significant that it led to some sanctions by the federal government.
But but he inherited his anti-Semitism and his racism and his everything else's.
Yeah.
While he was capable of sort of keeping it under the surface, it hasn't gone anywhere.
But you know what's interesting? Apart from his parents, the most formulating influence in his life was a Jew, Roy Cohn.
Yeah.
Which is kind of ironic. Ben?
Well, I don't know. Roy Cohn was no great role model in my book.
No, he wasn't, but he was to Trump.
Well, he taught him everything he knows. Delay, 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 flood the zone,
Never
deny.
apologize.
Go.
You did on all your contracts.
Yeah, right.
I know we have very little time left, but maybe another time we can talk about, and Michael, you're an expert on words, apartheid.
Yeah.
And that's used over and over about the Israel and Gaza and such.
Yeah.
And as I learned apartheid, it's about a systematic, killing or removal of a group based on some ethnic characteristics. And if you look at the population of the Palestinians in 1948 versus today, it's about 5 times what it was. So what kind of apartheid is that?
That's a great question. And of course, now the poor whites of South Africa are being so discriminated against that we have to bring them into our country now. Just sort of the opposite of apartheid. Anyway, well, look, we are just about out of time. For those who arrived late, I'll just repeat this quickly. This is going to be our last call for the calendar year. We're going to resume in early January, and there is some thought about maybe. And if I tell them that Herb and Sylvia won't be here, maybe that'll change their minds. But a way to expand the group to maybe move to an evening Zoom. So we'll see. I don't know. There's no conclusion reached at all yet. So we'll see what happens. But thank you all. Karen, it was nice to see you. I know you haven't, I don't think you've been with our group before, but I'm glad you participated. And I hope to see you all in early January. There'll be a note from the temple to remind everybody what time it is. And
for what it's worth, I prefer the daytime, which is
the daytime. Okay, I'll make that clear.
For more than a decade.
I prefer daytime too.
Okay. Well, if
this time Wednesdays works out good for me.
Okay, I'll certainly let them know that there's no great push to move it to the evening. I'm just interested in expanding the group. I want them to promote this a little better, to try to entice more people to join us and get more. I mean, I remember that one time, some of you, I'm sure, were on that one call when that one woman showed up for the first time who was a Trump supporter. And
Doris.
And it was right after he had given a big speech the night before, and we went around the screen, and I asked everybody what they thought of the speech, and everybody said, "Oh, he lied. This was terrible." And when I got to her, she said, "I loved every word he said." And I
remember that.
I was so happy she was with us.
Well, actually, she had been a member of the group for a long time.
Oh, is that right?
And she actually had expressed her opinions other times. And I mean, I talk to them once in a while, and I think she just started to feel uncomfortable
Yeah.
because
Well, she said
nobody
that.
would agree with her. And
Yeah, she said, "I'm sure everybody on this call hates me," which I'm
well,
Oh,
but part of the problem, I think, to me, part of the problem at the end of that, and this really shocked me, is people would cite articles or facts,
Oh,
and
she
after
said, yeah, she said, "Well, I didn't read that."
well, I didn't know about that.
Yeah, yeah,
And she still, even though it's been, you can give her the factual support, she doesn't want to know about it. So
yeah.
it didn't help change her mind.
Right, right. That's true. No, I remember that. I remember she said
a
that.
lot of people are very comfortable not changing their minds.
You bet. You bet. All right. Well, I hope you all have a great Hanukkah, great New Year's,
Thank you.
and
Thank you.
So,
I'll miss you
Thank
all,
you.
and we'll see you in January. Okay. Be safe,
Okay.
That'll be
everybody.
great.
Happy
sounds great.
Hanukkah. Happy